Hello. Thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi, and this is Thursday night, and this is the live streaming where I talk about Sashiko while doing the Sashiko stitching in front of the camera. Sakura is here. Uh, I'm extremely sleepy today. My daughter's school started just today, and last few days was like her daughter's Father's Day, so it was has been a little bit busy. But yeah, today I will be again stitching and talking about something. I brought some theme today, so if you have any questions, please leave the chat so I may be able to answer that. Please do not ask the technical questions because there's already the videos about technical things, so something that I can talk about, not the tutorials. I don't want to make this live streaming as a lecture or workshop. And what else? So this is the place where I want you to bring something for you to stitch together. So I don't. There's not gonna be any teaching here. So if you could bring your stuff to stitch or to do anything is fine. And if you could feel safe here, I will try to not to say something scary, which I hope it's not gonna be. I've never said something scary, but yeah, I hope if you could feel to be here. That's my point. That's my old wishes. Okay, let's start. Everything is good, right? Like let me check the audio. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Whew. Hello. Everybody, thank you so much for coming. Didi-san, don't worry about it. Okay. So the biggest announcement today is, should I start stitching? Well, I will do the biggest announcement. I brought the topic today, so this is the biggest announcement for today, and I will make that announcement in 5 or 10 minutes. Let me just start stitching. Where is my camera? Lift up. Just a second, okay? I'm doing something scary. Where is the camera? There we go. And then hello, welcome back to the Sashiko Gathering, Sashiko Live Streaming. Welcome back, Candida. Welcome back, everybody. Oops. Wait. For some reason, our school district doesn't start until Thursday. So those Monday through Wednesday, I was supposed to be with my daughter without any like summer school, summer camp, or even like daycare. So those 3 days I usually spend um, time with my daughter. And that was it today. So that was it last 3 days. I took her to the amusement park. I went to the trampoline place with the arcade. So it has been a little bit of difficult time, but it is all good. I'm just a bit tired, but that's expected. And I have not stitched last 3 days. So it's kind of crazy to not to stitch for 3 days. So my stitching may be a little clumsy. Clumsy? But yeah. Okay, let me start stitching so I probably can get a rhythm to talk about something too. Today I brought an announcement, so that's probably a good start to have a conversation. So the announcement is about the gathering. So this live streaming is like a gathering for me to make a place to be, right? Like the so-called ibasho. I want anybody to come and then listen to what I would like to say. One of the problem of this, not a problem, one of the pro of this live streaming is that I don't have to really prepare a lot of things. I like to prepare as much as I can. At the same time, I can do live streaming without any preparation. I can just bring myself here and I can start stitching and talking about something random. So it is very easy for me to keep it going. Even if it's weekly, if there's anything specific I can share, I just bring it. If not, I will talk about it. It's very much adjustable and on site. It does not have to be really specific thing. The other places I wanted to make was, but I'm sorry, the cons of this live streaming is that it is often one direction. As much as I would like to receive the comment and read it out, the con slight disadvantage of this live streaming is that it's it's one direction, so it is quite difficult for us to make a conversation. So instead of that, what I tried to make was the Sashiko room. Probably Sharon is here, and Sharon helped me to make that. It's the Sashiko live streaming with inviting the friend to talk about something specific. And it was very, very, very good, and I would like to restart that. At the same time, since it is for the public, like it is like live streaming with people, I felt much responsible for preparing the topics, and I wanted to entertain the guest, so it required me to be a good facilitator. It was quite difficult to keep it going periodically. So live streaming has a pro and cons, and what I want to do is half of what I want to do is covered by this live streaming, but there's another half that I would like to do. Communication. I want everybody to kind of speak up, be able to speak up, sort of be there. You don't have to speak up, but be there, feel there, as like a not one direction interaction. That's probably what we say that. The problem of that, it has been very, very challenging for me, is that because I do not have enough energy and time to facilitate every time I offer that preparation, administration work. Those things are very, very tiring, and I had a different priority. Finally, there was a person who, well, actually, she's a student. She volunteered to be the facilitator because her goal is also matching what we like to do. She's Japanese and she can speak English. Her goal is to be the bridge between the Japanese. She's an authentic craft, so she might expand her activities from Sashiko to others. But for now, since she's very much into Sashiko, learning Sashiko, she would like to offer the gathering monthly. And that's the new challenge we would like to do. Since I am not gonna be the facilitator, I believe we can keep it going. It's really up to her at this moment, but I believe that she will keep going that. And let me check. Let me finish this much stitching, and I will talk about the details. Try to make it as easy as possible to join everybody here. And again, there's a time difference, so it's not the ideal for everybody, but something on top of, something in addition to the live streaming. Live streaming is gonna be here all the time. Thursday 9 p.m. That's our regular time. So let's try to have, she said like she would like to have it twice in a month, but that's a little bit too much commitment to begin. If she doesn't mind doing that twice a month, then that's the case. But let's see how it's gonna go first, and then we can do that. And this is something that I really like to do. This is like a side theme, but I really want the Japanese people to join that. The main language we will use in that gathering is English. Because I have the gathering in Japanese already. Um, it's closed. It's closed group, but since I have the closed group in Japanese twice a month, um, I kind of don't have a need. I don't feel the need to have the gathering in Japanese. So the purpose of this gathering is to share the feeling of how Japanese culture, Japanese mindset, Japanese sort of like non-Western mindset might be like. I don't know how she's gonna facilitate, but I will be the kind of like, I don't want to be a supervisor. I'm not a supervisor. How do you call that? I will be checking what she's gonna do, but it's her project. I will be there. I will try. Well, she's gonna ask me advice. I will talk to her about it. So she's gonna you're working together. It's not really a work, but um will she post on your channel? Like I will advertise everything. You can find all the information here. I will update this description here to find the link and how to register that. So yeah, you'll get all the information. She doesn't have that many followers. She's quite new to the social media, so I will take care of those advertisement. But I just wanted to have the Japanese who can speak English, who is wishing to, who is, who wish to volunteer to facilitate this. So I found her already. Not already. I found her. She's the one actually who took my interview on the YouTube, and she has been very much, um, not even interested, amused, not even attracted. More than attracted. Very much amused to learn the Sashiko. Sashiko is her own culture, but she's willing to learn that, and she wishes to share her learning, which is happening in Japanese, in English, in English, without changing, without not changing it as much as she can. So it's gonna be the English, and sorry, another big hope that I have is that a Japanese who would like to practice English can join as well. Although the main language will be English, I hope that there are some Japanese who wish to try to practice their English, like Lily-san here. Lily-san, Lily-san, お願いします. So that you can hear the actual voice. I don't want you to really believe in me. Like I don't want you to have me as the answer. As I always say, what I'm saying is not the answer. It's just one story. So I would like everybody to listen to the other Japanese people how they think about those things. And Maiko-san is one person to do it. At the same time, those are the Japanese who can speak English. Those who just live in Japan right now, doing Sashiko right now there. If we can share the feeling, opinion about those things, that's probably the best way to pass down the culture. It might be uncomfortable, it might be inconvenient to me, but at the same time, my goal is to not to change the culture based on my convenience. So let's see how it's gonna be like. And the announcement is here. Just let me. Just a second, okay. So this is the website of her, which I will. I will. Just a second, okay. I will. Where's the link? There's a video on my YouTube channel about the interview with Maiko-san. Her name is Maiko. We did a pretty big interview, but I don't have enough time to edit it. So there's only one of those edited version of that. It's still pending, ongoing. But one of the things she would like to do is to try to make the place. So this is her website. Just let me get the website. Just a second, okay? I'm sorry. Hold on. Well, I will get the link. So this is the detail. God, how unorganized I am. So the left one is the gathering, which is gonna happen on Thursday. The first one is gonna be next Thursday, right after this live streaming. This one, the left one, this one. sorry. This one. So this one is gonna be on the Thursday, September 1st, next week, right after this live streaming. We will move to the Zoom, where it's gonna be sort of closed. It's not gonna be live streamed. It's gonna be closed session. Yet anybody can join. It's free of charge. Anybody can join, but you have to register that so that we know who are gonna be there. But you don't need to provide any information besides the email address and name. And that's it. There's gonna be a little bit of agreement that I would like you to read. For example, I want you to like Sashiko. Like, I don't want anybody to be there without like knowing what's going on. That's gonna be a little difficult for everybody. So yeah, so for only Sashiko lovers and who are interested in Sashiko, and anybody can join that. I will set up the link on the description area right after this live streaming. So if you could check the description area right after this live streaming. And also I will mention that on my Instagram and pretty much everywhere. So please try to find the link. And if you register the link will be sent to your email address. That's what probably she's gonna do. And that's gonna be once a month. This time may be adjustable, but still I would like to keep it this time because it's easier for me to just join. She may change that. For the first few times I will be there, but after the few times I might not be there. So there's no requirement, there's nothing you have to bring, there's nothing obligated. It's just the live streaming without being on live. It's gonna be just streaming, not streaming. It's gonna be the gathering without streaming. And because she would like to do more than once a month, there's one more thing, which is this one. In Japanese, I do have a gathering twice a month, just talking about something random. We call it Idobata Kai. There's no taboo in this place. They can ask me those Japanese people can ask me anything, including the technical things. But because of that specific no taboo rules, it is restricted to the specific people. In Japanese gathering, that's the my workshop graduate. And for the English, we will do the similar things in English, and I will be there for this one no matter what. And this will be only available for those who took my workshop, either online or in person, or anybody who is in the Patreon support group. I really appreciate them to help us to not to work part-time job. So those people who are in the Patreon, you will get a link to register that. So this is going to be very similar. Those two are going to be very, very similar. The difference is that one is with closed group One has more restriction. Left one is open for everybody. Left one is open for everybody. Right one is available for somebody who has been uh, learning some Sashiko from us already. And the right one, I will always be there. The left one, I may not be there. Both of them are facilitated by Maiko-san, and it's gonna be on Zoom. But I hope this will help us to feel the Japanese culture with Japanese atmosphere somehow. And well, there's a little agreement that I'm going to follow. So I will make sure to put the links to her page, to her website to register. And if you have any questions, you can ask her about it too. And yep, so that's the announcement for today. I don't know how it's gonna be like, so let's see. I hope everything's gonna be fine. But it's not like the workshop or tutorial or something that you might want to learn something. Maiko-san will probably, not probably, Maiko-san will direct you to take somebody's workshop, either me or somebody who is teaching in Japan. They are teaching in Japan, so probably me, to learn something specific, like how to use the needle, how to use the thimble. Those are not covered in this gathering. So that's gonna be, yeah, that's gonna be that. I have tons of stories that I'd like to share, but it's kind of, as much as I do not prepare anything for this live streaming, I use my brain a lot to not to say something I shouldn't say. Huh? To restrict myself to not to say anything specific. Huh? Does it make sense? I try to not to say everything from my mouth, from my brain. There's some filters between my brain and what I say. It's how it's supposed to be. I am honest, but there's a filter between in front of my mouth. So you're not really listening everything I think or I would like to say naturally. That's not okay to say everything I feel. I don't swear. Hopefully I don't much swear in the live streaming, and I do not I tried to not to be negative on the live streaming, although I sometimes get negative, of course. Being honest means you can be negative too. So those will not be there, especially the second one with the closed group. I will be more honest. Like, I don't know how more honest I can be, but less filter. Since I ask everybody, like, not everybody, since I said that you can copy anything, you can copy anything. Like, please copy whatever you do. But sometimes I would like to, of course, appreciate those who took my workshop to learn, or to support what we do, so that I don't have to, well, my mother doesn't have to get the part-time job to pay bills. The live streaming is a great place for me to share stories, but sometimes I have to choose the word. I think that group can be more direct, less filters, thanks to Maiko-san to facilitate. If I have to be the facilitator, I probably won't be able to do that. So let's see how it's gonna be like. But I'm pretty excited about that too. But at the same time, I do not. It is not my. It is not it's never is my intention to filter the people who like to learn based on what they have and what they don't have. Here, money. So if you if you cannot afford it, don't worry about it. The Patreon is only $5 per month. Only is probably not the good word to use. It's if you can do that, that'd be great. But if not, there's gonna be the free of charge. Anybody can be there. Welcome gathering on Thursday after this live streaming. So if you like it there, you can probably consider that as well. This was something I really, 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 really would like to do it. Wanted to do it before the COVID, and I started little by little after COVID with transiting everything into online. But at the same time, it was has been very challenging for me to facilitate, prepare, arrange, and now thanks to her, this is happening. And according to her, it is her benefit as well because that's what she really liked to do for herself. In the future, she might list something on top of Sashiko, and she may invite somebody else as well. There's some specific Sashiko I do not teach, like Koginzashi. Well, I can teach Hitomizashi, but I don't teach Koginzashi at all. So if Maiko-san feel comfortable enough to share her understanding of Kogin, she may be able to offer those workshop online as well. One of the biggest fear we share, that's probably the primary reason we're working together, is that translating is very, very, very tricky in this cultural topic. Translating by somebody who does not understand the Sashiko itself will be very difficult, even if the translator is the best translator in the world. In that, in those specific linguistic one, what we want you to learn, what we want them to learn in that meeting is I'm sorry, what I want them to learn is the ability to read between lines, something like read what is not written, what is not said. I don't know how, but we will do it somehow to make that happen. And when she feel comfortable by practicing those, I told her that she should do it more than 20 times or so to see if she can do that or not. She may expand it to something else, which is, I don't really restrict anything within her capacity. And I think she's trustworthy. We have never met. We are talking online a lot, but I hope that I can involve more Japanese people so that it's not gonna be just her and me who share the Sashiko English too. I did not realize you had a Patreon group. Thank you. Yes, that'd be great. It's somewhere on the description, I think. It takes more thoughts to filter in the second language, or at least it does for my brain. You do it well. Well, I hope you take this as a joke, but I'm a married man in the English as the first language in this family with their 7 years old daughter. So filtering what I say in my brain before I even speak out is kind of a necessary surviving skill. Even if it's my second language, it's more like I learned how to do that by necessity. I wasn't like this before the marriage. When I was in the university studying or just drinking, I didn't have any filters in front of my mouth. But now, because of one word can destroy a lot of things, and even if you think like that, there are things we shouldn't say. But it would be great to have the place to say too. I know it's really contradictory, but that's that's what it is. So those are gonna be the two gathering starting this summer, hopefully continuing to until the next year, and then we can evaluate how it went, adjustment, increase. Live streaming is gonna be here all the time. This is something I will never change after so many changes. I used to do live streaming without setting up the time whenever I felt like it. It was extremely difficult to have this specific time. For example, I usually wouldn't do the live streaming in this condition because my brain is completely fried. So I might be saying something that I shouldn't be saying. But I think after 3 years of practice in the live streaming, I'm getting better, or not even better, getting used to it. So now I can do live streaming in any kind of mind status. So having it on Thursday night is easy for me to just be here, and no preparation is necessary. So well, you can probably ask me to share how I would stitch the different patterns. In the live streaming, I always stitch this pattern, right? So your question may be, he may be able to just stitch this pattern. I hope nobody misunderstood it like that, but some people may think that I'm just capable of stitching this pattern only, or this pattern, you know. You can ask me to stitch different patterns in those closed meetings because I will not be speaking. She is going to be facilitating, so I don't have to speak up until I was assigned to. It's not like live streaming where I have to keep speaking regardless. So I will be able to do that, right? I think I can do those things. I may be even to do this. I may be even to do hitomezashi there. Just a second, I'm sorry, I made a little kind of mistake. Just a second, what's going on? Just a second, okay. I have to stitch this pattern because this is the only pattern I can talk while stitching in English. All the other patterns I really have to think. I mean, not the running stitch part. I don't really think when I move the running needle to make running stitch, but there's always the way to make the pattern easier. And those, many people have published a book or the website that, each book tells you how to stitch, right? Like this is the order you have to stitch. This is the you have to go this way, you have to go that way, you have to don't there's tons of rules and tons of directions, and they're not wrong, but in my understanding, that changes every time you stitch. It really depends on the size of the patterns. Pattern itself is of course a big factor. Size does matter. The number of rows matters. So here, for example, here and here, those are not it is the same pattern here, but they are the different direction when I stitch because they're in a different shape. So I have to think. I really have to think. So, but this one I don't have to think because I've done so many times, and I don't have to think when I do the running stitch, but I have to think when I do the optimal, optical, most efficient, and I don't like to be inefficient. So that's one reason I don't really talk, and I can watch and stitch. I don't mind watching the like Netflix and stitch, and I'm okay with. I don't know. I really don't know. Stitching and talking is a little the next level rather than listening or watching something and stitching. Yes, I'm working from the back. 99% of the project I work from the back. And there's, of course, there are reasons for that too. Ah. I think majority of Sashiko taught in today's society is from the front, right? From the front side or good side. They look at the good side and then probably stitch. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are stories why some Japanese stitched from the back side. It is ideal to be able to do both, as always. As I always say that there's a big difference between don't and can't. If your teachers are saying that you can do this or you don't, and you can you can do it or you don't, you do this. If that rule, if that teaching is based on what they choose to do, that's perfectly fine. But if it's based on what they cannot do or can do, then that's a little problematic. Be careful with what you're learning or what you're doing based on can't and don't. Like I don't stitch from the back side is a very true statement and I have no problem with that. But I cannot stitch from the back, therefore everybody should stitch on the front side is a little, extreme. I'm not gonna use the analogy with the pizza, but you can probably find any analogy for that don't and can't. What's going on today? There's something. Probably needle is time to go. Hmm. Oh, fabric is. Something is a little different today. Well, I haven't stitched for 3 days. That's probably the reason, but something is off. One of the kind of many people are wondering, many people wonder when is the good time to change the needle. Needle is the consumption. It's we have to use it, so you have to at some point replace that. And your question will be when. And I once found a website that you should sharpen your needle every time you use it by using the where I may have that somewhere. Well, if you have like a pincushion from Amazon or somewhere, or like a crafting store like Joanne, you can find the tomato pincushion, right? Tomato pincushion. And usually those tomato pincushion has the strawberry right next to it. Strawberry, like small things next to that. Needle, pincushion, small strawberry. Or if it's a hedgehog that I have somewhere, hedgehog, and then there's a little tail next to it. And those small things are needle, actually not a needle, pin sharpener. There's a sanding sand inside of that little bag, and then you can sort of sand your needles to make it a little bit sharper. Sorry, again, not needle, pins. I found one website explaining that they should sand it every time they use it. Please don't. Please trust Japanese artisans. It's gonna make it just dull. And usually, if you have to sharpen it that much, probably it's time to replace. And if you stitch 3 hours per day for 3 months or 4 months, that might be a time to change. So usually I have 4 or 5 needles every year to go through the farewell ceremony for the needle, so-called harikuyo, where I have a lot of pins to go to say bye. But needle-wise, Sashiko needle-wise, I really don't have many needle replacing it, because one, it's very, very good needles, and second, I know how to not to bend it. For the sharpness wise, it's really good for a few months, unless you stitch very, very, very aggressively. Aggressively means like a lot of hours. And after probably a few months of stitching, you will probably start feeling something's off. It's very difficult to explain by a word, but if you are stitching in the rhythm, you start feeling that something is off. Like more pushback or like something is off. And that's the time you start wondering, maybe start wondering if might be because of the needle's sharpness. And usually those weirdness, strangenesses are the result, sorry, the strangeness is the result of multiple factors: humidity, fabric, even your hand. But just by talking to your fabric and needle, you will start figuring out what is the time for you to shift it. And if you don't feel that difference, probably that means that needles are still good to go. Probably Lily-san here or somebody else. No, there are people who use the needles more than a year or so. So you can't keep using that. If you are going to stitch on the denim like I do, probably you don't have would have probably the time you have to stitch is the time the needle get bent. The needles are supposed to be straight, right? Like this needle has to be straight. Of course, it has to be so much lighting. Has to be straight. But by stitching on the denim, the needles may bend. Not because of stitching itself, but when you try to pull the needles out because of the denim fabric, it could bend, especially if you don't know how to pull the needles out. In that case, you may have to exchange the needle sooner than you think. And this is Sashiko needle, right? So Sashiko needles are not necessarily designed to stitch on the denim. Like the needles I use are usually okay. I have not heard. I mean, never is the too big word, but it's very, very unlikely to have the broken needles with the eyes broken. The needle's eye does not break that easily. It might be lemon if you experience that, but if you're using the Sashiko needle made by the other companies, it may be broken pretty easily. And I talked to them, of course. I talked to the manufacturer, and then the manufacturer's answer is, well, it says Sashiko needles, and it's not intended to be used on the denim. So please apologize to the customers like that. And it makes sense. I mean, Sashiko is really not designed. Originally, it's not. One needles we have is the Big Eye Straight, and they are designed based on my mother's advice to the manufacturer, and my mother doesn't stitch on the denim at all, none. So of course it is designed to stitch only the good cotton fabric. So those are more like knowing what you do. Ah, but yeah, I do not recommend sharpening your needles with yourself. It's probably the time for you to replace it. And it shouldn't be that dull within the few weeks or few months. But try to wipe the needles every time after you stitch, especially you have a like oily finger. After many years of stitching, your hands start losing the oil completely. Like I don't even have the fingerprint. Okay, I'm sorry. I do have a fingerprint, but my fingerprint is not strong enough to activate the iPhone or smartphone. That's how bad it is. So if you're new and if your hands are very oily, not oily in a good sense, in a good way, um, in a good way, you might want to wipe your needles every time after you use it. So it's gonna be in a good shape. So in summary, don't sharpen it with anything. Don't sharpen with anything. Not the ground walnut, the sand. No, nothing. Trust the Japanese artisan. Pins are a different story. If you're gonna use the pin, I often because they're not sharp enough to begin with. I mean, the goal is to just go through the fabric, so. if one if people here are wondering why the stitches are not so even or why is it so difficult to do the running stitch, the first thing I want to check is the thread. As I keep saying, the thread matters. uh, if you're not using the same thread, try to change the thread and you'll probably find out the difference pretty easily. And if you don't feel the difference much, or if you still feel difficult or uncomfortable stitching, the needle is the second thing to check. Needles are quite important as well. I mean, everything is important, but there's a Japanese word, I mean, not a word, a Japanese proverb saying that the true master do not choose the tool to use. Kobo wa fude wo erabazu. It means that the true Japanese calligrapher master does not choose the brush to do the actual calligrapher. That's a very famous, proverb. I do. That's another reason I don't consider myself a master, but I do need the specific tool to make a good sashiko stitching. I cannot. I mean, it's not even don't or can't. I cannot do the good sashiko without these tools. So, well, I'm saying I cannot. So that's one thing. Yeah, there are specific things I can. I probably can, but I don't really want to. I really don't want to. Hmm? I'm sorry, I'm gonna read the comment. That's one thing I try to get through to people, that sometimes people don't want to hear. Sewing needles are not precious heirlooms. Yeah, needles are it's consumption. The more you use the needle, the needles wear out, and that's how it's supposed to. The needles that it does not wear out, it's pretty scary. The knife, you can sharpen it, you can use the sharpener to do it, but needles are very, very subtle. And if you're just stitching anything to make a big hole, or you know, you're stitching for no specific reasons, of course you don't have to replace it, you can keep sharpening it. But for the Sashiko specific purpose, I strongly recommend getting the new needles when you feel a little strange. It is not cheap to replace, but 4 times a year shouldn't be that extremely difficult. Oh yeah, that's the same proverb. A bad workman always blames his tools. I may be one of those. If I don't have tools, if I don't have right tools, I always probably blame my tools. That's why I have to protect those tools. I really need them. I mean, because the Japanese knew that the needles are consumption. We do not really waste things. We always try to upcycle or repurpose things. The word mottainai is one of those things. So we try to reuse everything, but unlike the knife or the other tools, actually, for that matter, we have a very specific farewell ceremony for the needles to send them off. That explains a lot, right? Why do they have the ceremony twice a year? Well, it depends on the regions, once a year. But once a year, they have a ceremony to say goodbye to the needles, broken needles, or bent needles, or unsharpened needles. They say goodbye and appreciate their hard work for the year. I don't think there's any. Well, there should be those ceremonies for knives and sword, but it's not annual. Maybe annual. I may just don't know it. Sakura? I don't like the sound. What's going? What's going on, Sakura? I know. I don't like the sound. What was I talking? Yeah. So the needle, needles. They believe that needle is something to say goodbye after specific time of usage. Does that saying apply to people trying to work with actual bad tools, or is that for people who have perfectly good tools but are bad at the takes and blame it on the tools? You gotta ask D for that. I think you're talking about the English proverb? I don't know. Probably both. Probably not, neither. Before taking a workshop, I was always on the hunt for the perfect needle. Now I am constantly using high quality needles. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharon. I sometimes get a very happy and nasty feedback. I cannot use the other needles besides yours. How could you? How could you do that to me? Like, thank you and sorry. I mean, the needles are not that cheap. Unfortunately, that's the thing. It's not, insanely expensive, but sometimes it's not really cheap. Oh, the latter. Let me check that. Which is the so a bad workman always blames his tool is actually the word for the people who have perfectly good tools but are bad at the tasks and blames it on the tools. Oh, oh, okay. I I try to not to blame that. For the harikuyo, we call it harikuyo, this needle ceremony, uh, find it somewhere. On the Instagram, there gotta be somewhere. I explained that somewhere on the Instagram. On the Patreon page, I probably made a very long story. So, I mean, if you cannot find on the Patreon, please let me know. I will find it. Patreon doesn't have the search function, and that's kind of annoying. But again, I can search on my Google Doc, which is the sort of archive of what I'm doing on Patreon. If you're not on the Patreon, try to find that on the needle ceremony, which you probably see needles on the tofu. If that's the photo, I think that's the photo. Well, probably I may have the photo saying harikuyo or needle ceremony. But yeah, those article explains how and what's gonna happen there. So that might be a good service for me to do it for you too, though, in the US. I mean, anybody can do it. There's no specific certification, no, there's no training to do it. But since I do it every year, I can actually do it. That means that somebody who may purchase this house will find that there's a needle's grave in my backyard, which is probably not illegal, right? In the US, it is illegal to have grave in my yard, I guess. But if it's for needles, it's okay. I don't know. I have to talk to somebody for that. But there's no specific things. Well, I mean, if you are part of shrine, of course, there's some specific phrases, specific mantra to say, but in the briefcase one, I think it's not that specific. Well, I do have some mantra to say. So I'm in between. I'm not so professional about it, but I'm not so. I have a very strong rituals for that. You know, people got pretty surprised when I introduced that needle ceremony for the first time. I think that was 4 years ago. I remember strongly because that was probably the most liked post for that year. Although I was sharing the Sashiko photos, that was the my Sashiko was not the one they liked the most. But I think that's something we know for like we really the Japanese people know, Japanese people who are in stitching industries, they know that ceremony 100% sure. If they don't know it, they are not in the stitching industry. That's how common it is for us. So I didn't even think of introducing that. But I think that's something we're trying to do, introducing something very ordinary for me, but it's extraordinary outside of this culture. Wow, wow, wow. Maybe you could live streaming it next time you do. That's something I cannot do because it's a little bit too secretive. It's not for everybody. Like you don't live streaming somebody's funeral. It's too disrespectful. I mean, live streaming is very like if I probably can do it in the lives, that meeting, that gathering. Yeah, yeah, I can definitely can do that in that gathering. Probably with the, closed group one. But live streaming is probably not okay to do that. Not probably. It's not okay in my understanding. Not a sewing needle grave, that is not illegal. Having medical needles in your yard is not. No, it's not medical. Okay, thank you. It's funny, but it's not illegal. Having medical needle in your yard is not good, but it's not illegal. Huh. It is interesting. I like the idea of the needle ceremony. It shows mindfulness and appreciation of something we use, and even though the needles are being thrown away, it is the opposite of throw away the culture. Yep. That's the, appreciation to the, yeah, it's appreciation to the culture. And I think the copy the Wikipedia things, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the copying the Wikipedia thing. But that's not the whole picture. So please try to read the Instagram post I made. Yeah, I am reading it right now, but it is not. Again, it is not wrong, but it's not 100% accurate. And I explained what is not accurate and what is accurate. So yeah, I mean, if the Wikipedia is explaining the whole picture of the things, I probably you just go to Wikipedia and read it. I'm not that particular about my explanation. So I've read that Harikuyo in Wikipedia, and that's the idea itself is generally, I mean, it's not wrong. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong in that description, but there's a little more of that. So if you could read the Instagram, probably Patreon's better, but I think I wrote enough on the Instagram too. I don't think I made a video about it too. It's a little scary. I do not want to be disrespectful to that, and this is kind of a difficult thing, but we talk about this kind of spiritual things as the good thing, right? We always kind of appreciate, you know, respect, but that's only one part of that. It can be negative too. If we do disrespectful things, it can be the negative power. It can be, of course, positive power or power, not a power, influence. Ah, the word you're gonna fill up. Um, Spirit Away, the movie Spirit Away, is one result of not respecting the spirit. It's a beautiful story, but that's kind of antithesis to the society we live in. So I don't know how many people watch that movie, but they accidentally yet willingly go into the spiritual, no, sorry, the place where the spirit lives. And that's the journey for Chihiro start. And there's a lot of stories after that. But because we don't know those stories, even Japanese people don't know many stories, we sometimes accidentally, unwillingly cross the line. And making an entertainment over those ceremonies is one thing that I probably shouldn't do. either way. If I know who are gonna be there with explaining what we have to do, then probably it's okay. But spiritual, because they believe, because we believe, it can be powerful. My wife doesn't believe in it, so for her it's probably nothing. But because we believe in that, it can be powerful, and I'd like to make sure that nobody gets nothing. I mean, if it's powerful, that's perfectly fine. But if it's negative, I mean, sorry, if it's positive, that's perfectly fine. But I don't want people to, feel weird. Actually, if you would like to, actually, that's a very good start. I probably told somebody else, but watching the Ghibli is a very good way to start learning how Japanese culture works, Japanese mindset works. It's an insanely good, incredibly good anime, cartoon, animation to understand how Japanese think. Like Princess Mononoke, Spirit Away, Grave of the Fireflies, anything is fine actually. There's a it's all connected in one thing, and you may wanna. It might be. Oh, actually, I should probably talk about it. How Sashiko and Japanese mindset and Ghibli can link. I mean, Ghibli didn't link Sashiko at all, but we can find the link to Sashiko from Ghibli. And it's more than what it is. So if we focus on the story or result or outcome of the movie, we may probably not get everything. I did not get that until I kept watching and watching and watching. When when I was in the university, we did not have any Netflix, or we had a DVD barely, and I miss Japanese anime a lot. I mean Japanese things a lot, and there was I brought the Ghibli DVD, and I think I watched more than more than one can do. And probably many people are misunderstanding some of the messages. So, and many Japanese people also misunderstand that too. If we focus on the outcome, this is not my word. This is from the kind of one critic's word. But the problem of Ghibli is that the both director Takahata-san and also Miyazaki-san both trust audience too much. They think that audience will find out the message that they put in by watching it. And we can find their interviews. They wrote many books about those things. Of course, there's critique about that too. But I quite agree with that. They really overestimate the audience. In another word, they underestimate the power of them listening, the audience listening to what they want to listen, or the audience watching what they want to watch, instead of what is actually written or tried to express. So for that, it's quite important to understand Ghibli, to understand Japanese culture or mindset. See, those are going to be very, very good topic to discuss in the closed group. So Zoom, like since I have no connection to Ghibli or nothing, right? No affiliation, and I shouldn't be talking about those movies, especially the contents wise. I shouldn't be. It's their copyright, so I shouldn't be talking in public or live streaming to anonymous people. But I think I can talk about those things in the closed group. So that can be one topic that I can suggest to Maiko-san to talk about. I want to talk. I really want to talk, but let's stop. I will not do that. Let me stop it here. People will always try to apply their own culture to something first. Yes, very correct. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Something bad happens when they start spreading their own interpretation or understanding as the answer. Like we all do that. We always, I do that too. I do that to apply my own values to the things I learn every day in the US. And it is nothing we can even judge. We shouldn't even judge about those things because that defines who you are, who we are. But there's a big, big, big line that we have to be careful. When one starts teaching or spreading the word, or pretty much spreading the word around without considering the other side of the story, that's the problem. Start. So I don't want to pick on the Deviant for this, but the Grave of Fireflies was very, very sad story, right? But that's not the story itself. It's not the war against movie. It's not for the. It's not a politics. It's not a political movie. It's not about the anti-war again, anti-war movie, and it's not about uh, losing the sisters movie. It's really heartbreaking. It is a very heartbreaking movie, but the core message is not there. And if there's any critic saying that the movie is the anti-war, that's a little simplified, too simplified. It is not, and there's a lot of things that we can explain by watching it. I mean, they said that it's not anti-war. It's true story. It's half true stories of the author, original author, and the author actually said that it's not an anti-war movie. I mean, he does not agree with the war, but the movie itself is not the anti-war. So that's something we really have to be careful. It is okay. It is. I mean, it's not even okay or not okay. It's really understandable. It's really really things that we do. We understand things based on what we know, based on the value we have. But the problem is that if we start telling the others without proper studying or learning, or even they don't even have to learn, acknowledging it. And the reason I keep saying like teaching is really difficult, I mean problematic for that, is that if I was the only one who is accepting something completely different, like interpretation is different from the original culture, if I'm the last person to do it, I can always change that perception. Let's say that I cannot think of any analogy or example, but if unless it is my personal interpretation, personal um, impression, personal experience, that ends there. And by learning more, by listening to somebody's story, somebody's talking, or even reading something, we can always change that perception almost immediately. Like this. Ah, okay, that's new thing. That's a new way to look at it. That's great. I learned something new. That's great. I like that. I'm probably Sashiko, like, if I say that I'm stitching on the back side, and some people may think that Sashiko should be stitched from the front side. If the person who thinks that stitching from the back did not happen, by learning somebody who is stitching from the back side, they can change their perception, their understanding like this. Oh, somebody can stitch from the back side. The problem with teaching or spreading the word is that by spreading the word, they have to define what they say as the answer. So they cannot change they cannot change their perception or understanding that easily because they already involve somebody else. And especially if they receive the money, that makes a lot of different because no teacher would like to say that what I taught was wrong or not enough. Especially if the title said something very promising. That's the problem of teaching or spreading the word because it limits the things. That's why I keep saying like teaching is very responsible. Well, teaching comes with the responsibility. If that ends, learning ends, or perception or interpretation or understanding ends one place, then there's no problem with that. Like we can always change it. But if we start teaching, that's gonna be a little different story. I never really saw it as the anti-war movie, but one cannot deny that the film as a whole was gripping. I'll give it a second watch. Yes, watch as many times as you can. Every time you watch, you might find something new. I probably watched more than 100 times, so every time I watch something like, what is going on here? Why is it like that? Why? I keep checking, like, what's going on? They're like, I want to read what they really thought about it. And I started reading the director's note. And then I found a critique about those things and then kept watching his critiques, which was hours of videos. And I had to pay for that, but I enjoyed it. It was something I really wanted to learn. And my mother doesn't like that movie. Keiko doesn't really like that movie. And when I was watching it, when I was a child watching that movie, she asked me to change that channel, and either she asked me to change the channel, or she kind of ran away from it, and I did not understand why she would refuse to watch it because I liked it. I mean, I did not like it, but I wanted to watch it. I did not understand why she did not like it that much, but I kind of understand it now after so many years. So, I mean, my point is that there's so many angles to look at it, either Ghibli or Sashiko too. It is because it is based on the Japanese mindset and culture and history and traditions and rituals, everything. So that's why I keep asking to just acknowledge it little by little. You don't have to be right. I mean, there's no such a thing as being right. Probably, I hope that this live streaming is offering some of the new angles so that you can learn something new, and that will help everybody to pass down this culture. Unfortunately, there are so many things that we have not shared yet. That's not your fault, or that's not anybody's fault, but pretty much our Japanese fault because we don't speak up much. And if we want to protect this culture, we have to speak up. And that's what we're doing. Okay, after this thread, I will go off. Next week, right after this live streaming at 10:30 Eastern Time right now. We will move to the Zoom session for the gathering, and I will put the link on this description right after this live streaming, where you can register. Anybody can come. Anybody who likes Sashiko and Japan. If you don't like Sashiko and Japan, don't come, please. Well, one thing we kind of worried or even kind of anticipate was that by saying that anybody can come with no fee, right? No fee. No fee is the little key. We really wanted to make it no fee to come in, but no fee means that anybody can come, which could encourage somebody who do not like me to join. Well, let's see. If there's a fee, those people who don't like me usually don't come because they really don't want to contribute to my income, right? And that has been like that, and that's my sort of the protect strategies for those things. But since we agree that Maiko-san will be in charge of the facilitating, she might be kicking somebody's out from the group. But that's not something I have to do, so that's gonna be a big relief. Just be respectful. That's very true. Just be respectful is the key. But there are not that many people. I mean, there are few people who do not do that. This is like a pure, like this is honest. This is very honest and pure, curious comment. So, my message in 2022 is that the Sashiko introduced in English is not wrong, but insufficient, right? Insufficient. Somebody said that, how about using the incomplete? I do not use the incomplete because in using the word incomplete, I am implying that there is such a thing as complete version of Sashiko, and there is no such a thing. So I do not want to use the incomplete as the substitute of insufficient. Not enough is the key. there was kind of accusation that, what do you mean by that Sashiko introduced in English is not enough, sufficient? How could you say that? And the message was like, how could you say those things? And what is the sufficient version of Sashiko? And my question back is like, how do they think that it's sufficient if they do not understand Japanese at all? I just don't understand. Like, of course not. And it's not a bad thing to have insufficient, like not enough in Sashiko understanding. Do I understand American culture 100%? No, I don't think I have understand even 1% of that. I am trying. The same thing. But I don't dare to teach American history to anybody. I cannot even say who is the, I cannot list the president's name, which I have to memorize those things in order to be the citizen in the future. Okay. Didi-san, thank you so much. Your mom was talking to all the time. Of course, it's difficult for you to listen to me and talk to your mom. Thank you. I talked about something that I would like you to come over to. Okay, I will. Sorry, let me check that. So this one is gonna be the next week. Thursday, September 1st, 2022 at 10:30 p.m. Right after this live streaming, like 5 minutes from now for that. And she said that 2 hours or so, but I might I might sleep before that. But she's gonna bring some topics to discuss. And I think it's gonna be fun. But yes, they will be a Japanese who can speak English. Will be facilitating this gathering. I am part of this. I will work with her, but she is gonna be in charge of this. So let's enjoy the ride. And for those who have taken my workshop and also on the Patreon, we will have follow-up of that, this one, the right one, which I will be there with the specific themes. You can of course bring your own themes if you'd like to. This one we will share the information via well, actually I shared this information already on Patreon. So if you're on the Patreon group, please check that announcement. And for the online Sashiko student or even the graduate, please check your email. And if you do not receive that email, please let me know. I probably do not have everybody on the list, especially if you take the workshop from the third party, like Salvage. Unfortunately, I do not keep that email list because I did not, it's technically not my list. So if you can, and I do have your, so I can check the list to make sure that you're part of it. So if you are the graduate of any more than 3 hours of workshop or online class, I'm happy to send you the link for that. So please let me know. And lastly, I keep saying that every time. If you could press the good button for this live streaming, that's very, very much appreciated. I still have the bot, and I think it's a bot because few weeks later they sometimes make it like they unlike it, huh? They then undislike it. I have no idea what I'm saying, but it will be very helpful for me to have the better health channel health for that. Okay, and I will sign off. If you have any questions and if you're watching this archives, please let me know via comment. I do not reply the comment on YouTube very often, but I am reading everything. Thank you so much as well. All right, have a good night, and I hope to see you next week as well. Bye.